In this video in my tutorial series on learning how to use the basics of spreadsheets, we're going to look a little bit further at some of the issues to do with formatting a spreadsheet for style. If you've completed the previous exercise on entering data, this is pretty much what you should hopefully have within your spreadsheet. This could be a good opportunity to see whether you need to move anything around. I'll show you a quick technique for moving something around. When I select a cell, you'll see that there is a highlight around it. Whenever I move my mouse over it, it changes its shape to a slightly thinner four direction arrow. And when I now click and drag, I can now move that box from side to side. This also works with a whole series of boxes in a range as well. Okay, so in the previous video, I showed you how to use the basic formatting options here to set a style for your text. So as you can see, I'm choosing some different colors. Might not go too far yet with fonts, but at least just by showing you some of the basic formatting styles again, we then start to achieve a slightly nicer looking spreadsheet. If you drop down the cell sheet styles, you also get access to some pre-done styles as well, which can be quite helpful. Now, when you are entering data into your spreadsheet, you may have seen that when you entered a piece of data, it may have ended up being slightly cut short like this. You may think, well, what do I do in that sort of circumstance? I think you would have seen by how I moved that column header in. That gives you one clue as to how you can control the width and height of your rows. What I have seen certain pupils and new individuals to spreadsheets do is that if they put a very long piece of text into a cell, what they often do is they think, well, okay, as soon as that text is there and it's covering E, F, and G, my next piece of text is going to go here. But what they've actually done is that E, F, and G have now been left blank. And if I was to make D a lot longer, you see how that gap then throws out the layout of the text. There is a useful option which I will mention at this point called merge and center. It's a fun one to explore with, but we're not going to cover it just yet. So how would I get this text in this column to be slightly larger? Well, there are three methods of doing this. For starters, the method which I've been using is I've been moving my mouse to the line in between the column header of the column I wish to resize and the next column to the right. It turns to a line and two arrows pointing left and right, and I can now click and drag and move it out. There we go. I've now made my column a little bit wider. The next way of doing this, let's move that back in. If I move my mouse to in between the column headers and I double click, you see what it's done is that it's automatically jumped to the width of the widest piece of text, which is likely the class average, plus a little bit more just for safety's sake. The third method of controlling column width, which can be quite useful for multiple columns, is if I highlight all of these columns, I then right click on it and go to column width. And it's currently blank because my columns to begin with, C and D, had different column widths. But if I enter a value into there now and hit OK, you see how that value has been applied to each of those columns. So I see, whoa, that's gone a bit too wide. Let's bring this one back in. I can use column width to see how wide that is, 7.43. So let's undo a couple of things. And now when I redo it, so 7.43 was the width of the test 1% column. Let's use 7.5 as a nice round number. And I've now got some consistent column widths. So now what I'd like you to do in your own spreadsheet for your exercise is to use some of the formatting options from font, alignment, and styles to spruce up the look of your spreadsheet in a way in which you think is going to be useful for you. A good point to remember is that if you ever need to print out your piece of work, it may help not to have colors or choices of formats which don't print out very well on pieces of paper. What I have occasionally seen people do, which doesn't normally work very well, is they've put grids around the entire spreadsheet, but when you do go to print that out, as you can see, the entirety of that grid is printed out. So by just having the grid over the data area, when I print, my grid is just going to be there over the data area. Good luck.